Hey everybody, it's Jack Reedy with Future Pastimes. This is the Savage Board of Conan, where we're going to have a nice little panel discussion about something having to do with the Adventures of Conan board game. I'm joined by GJ and Jaded, who are playtesters on the game, and they have a lot of strong opinions about a number of things, so they're good to have in here. And today's topic is just going to be exploring how differently the characters play from one another. So each character has two abilities, one on each side of its character card. And how big of an effect does it really have on the gameplay as one of the many things that can affect how the game will unfold from start to finish? Certainly the plot can have a minor effect on it. What events will come up will have an effect, which adventures and which encounters, as well as other random things like which challenge tokens you draw. But I think the characters can have a pretty big impact, and how they interact with many of the other effects can change up the game quite a bit. So we have not loaded all of the characters in. We have a couple of things from the base game, Tothamon and Janissa, and of course Conan the Cimmerian. We've brought in the other two Conans that you can get in the expansion. So Conan the Slayer, Conan the Avenger with their abilities. And then we're going to look at three of the allies from the expansions, Belit, Amalric the Lion, and Cowlen, as well as three of the other foes, Nabonidus, Natok, and Kirilo. And each of their abilities, so that we can get a sense. You can see that Conan's dice are all... it's all the same configuration here. We have two different dice configs for the allies. So the dark and the light primary dice, same secondary for everybody. And then we've got two of the black foe dice, one of the red foe dice here for our bad guys. And they, where they start on the board is going to be a big deal. So, like with Tothamon, he's down in Stygia, while Conan is up in Samaria. So they're pretty far apart. Nabonidus starts in Corinthia, which is a little bit closer to Conan. It's 1, 2, 3 kingdoms away, and it is very centrally located here on your main board. Kirilo starts on the secondary board. He starts in Iranistan here. And when the game starts, this kingdom does not have the pirate attribute, so a sail action is not immediately possible, and they'd have to move a couple of kingdoms before he could do a sail action, unless you use that kingdom's special ability to toggle that on, and that's what this token is for. So when you toggle on, this now has that attribute, and if you use that kingdom action again, toggles it off. And same thing with punt, can toggle on and off the thief attribute. And then, of course, Natok starts in the Eastern Desert, which is a notorious location because it's harder to get out of, and it has no special abilities. So, and these are all, thematic places. This is where, Conan encountered Kirilo, more or less, somewhere in this area. Probably closer over to here, but we're just going to stick with this half of the Hyborian Age. But yeah, let's. Who do you want to start with? Should we start with the base game guys, just as a frame of reference, and then do some compare and contrast? What do you think?
I think that's fair.
Yeah. So why don't we start with Conan and take a look at his two abilities, the base game abilities. Let's actually start with this one. It's much easier. It's just use any fate token as a warrior. So normally the way the fate tokens work is if you've got this, you can change one of your dice to that symbol so that you can either do that action if you need to do a move or whatever, or if you're doing an encounter or a plot roll or an adventure where you need that symbol, you would use that for there. But there's a lot of reasons why Conan might need a warrior, fights and duels being one of them, but the same other things, adventures, encounters, and plot rolls. So if he's got any fate token, he knows he can use that as a warrior. And then you have to flip the card to the other other ability. His other ability helps him to advance on the achievement track. So, normally advancing on the achievement track, if he's here in Zingara, and it has the thief and pirate attributes, which are achievement attributes. If he's got in the main phase, if he has a die with those symbols or the wild, he can spend it as an action just to move up on the corresponding achievement track. But with his ability here, is he can spend a fate token or an active die to advance on an achievement in a kingdom without the matching attributes. So if he's here and he's got a warrior, he can spend that warrior to just advance on that track, even though it doesn't have the attribute, and then he has to flip the card. So those are the two Conan abilities. All right, why don't you guys walk us through one of the other ones here?
Jade.
I think I just wanted to point out before we leave
sure.
Conan, I think a really great part about him is that both of his abilities flip his character over. And that's something that you choose where it starts at the start of the game. And for most other characters, you'll be kind of locked to that unless you get a certain ability or there's a god token that lets you flip your character over. But Conan is constantly able to get value out of both of these effects, and they're both pretty useful as well. So it may seem like, oh, shoot, I can't just keep spamming this ability, but I think it's great because it gives you a lot of versatility. Because you never know what might get thrown in Conan's face by the ally and the foe.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, now we have the Slayer and the Avenger, and two very different takes on what they can do. Yeah,
just because it's a lot more fun in a way. One side has you may return any unused god tokens in the end of round phase and score 2 points for each one. And the flip side is something quite different, but that plays into the same idea. That when you successfully complete an encounter, score 1 extra point for each die you had set aside, including wounds. Basically, at least to me, Conan the Slayer is the reckless Conan. Is the one that just goes in big and doesn't care about the consequences and is more than happy to take risks. This side specifically, the red side, is great because you want to do encounters more than often than not, or rather, you're going to do encounters because, well, they come just before adventures, and the foe, and more often than not, even the ally, will unlock them. And Conan usually is not as happy as they are, just fighting random monsters and whatnot. But as the Slayer, you kind of embrace it. You know it's going to come, and you're going to say, sure, remove all the dice you want from me. I'm just going to win anyway, and I'm actually going to gain quite a big advantage.
and I should point out that this is actually an earlier version of it. We actually beefed up this card quite a bit. So the return the god tokens, that's 3 victory points you actually get. We had to bump that one up. And on the other side, when you complete an encounter, you actually get 3 extra victory points for each die that you had set aside, including wounds. So it's even better than it was when we first started. And when we first were going, we're like, this is okay. And then towards the end of the design process, I was like, you know what? Let's make it even better, and let's make this a little bit sexier. So the final Conan the Slayer it's got a few extra ways to get some points.
I mean, at the same time, the just returning unused god tokens is a risk you take, because a god token that you don't use generally carries over to the next turn, which means you have potentially 2 or 3 you can use in quick succession. But returning it back means that you give up the ability to ask a god for help. And considering how reckless you want to play, if you end up flipping side, which, as you can see, is a lot harder in this version of Conan, but not impossible, returning a god token is a big risk, but at the same time, you're going to get rewarded quite heavily if you end up just saying, whatever, I don't care, I know I can do it, I'm just going in and seeing what happens. It's a very fun and different way of playing. The Cimmerian is very balanced, it's very calculated. You basically try to find ways to get to the point, to get the result you want in the easiest and less painful way possible. The Slayer is the exact opposite. It just looks into danger and runs in and doesn't care. And honestly, it's very, very fun. You will get hurt a lot playing the Slayer, but that's kind of the point of it.
It also opens up the option for you to, because God tokens, whenever they're not chosen during a round, they accumulate gold that you'll gain when you choose them next time. So it even opens up Conan to just taking a God token that's maybe not very useful just for the gold and then returning it for more points. It's
Yeah.
just specifically choosing the less impactful gods, so to speak,
Right.
the non-Zoth ones.
And in that main phase, of course, you can do that tribute to the gods action by spending a gold and picking up a god token, and whether it has gold on it or not, that is potentially 3 more victory points for you to just be like, I'm spending a gold to get some points here at the. So even if you're like, all right, I'm going to use this token for its effect, and then I'm going to pick it up again later on, so that I can return it for points, and then you'll still get to probably pick a god token at the start of the next round. So that is, again, it's the sort of thing where if you're if that aligns better with your style of play, then that's the way to go. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I love the Rogues Gallery variant when you're using the Crom token. So if you're like, I'm taking control of Conan, you can actually take whichever of the 3 Conans. If you've got all of them, you could be like, yeah, you may have been the Sumerian, but I've used Crom to take control of Conan, and I'm actually going to take the Slayer because right now I've got 3 God tokens, and I know I can get 9 points for that before maybe switching back to somebody else later on. So yeah, that's and again, some of the God tokens. I mean, if you're getting a random mix, like maybe you've got Turketo and you just don't have any duplicate fate tokens. You're like, well, you know what? Maybe I'll pick this up again later, but right now, let's just get 3 victory points for it because you might be able to get something on the scoring track that, a gold or some fate tokens at the same time for just getting those points. So that is a nice approach.
Just
Especially if
before
you
we move,
already have 3, where you can only hold 3 gods at a time. So if you're already at 3, you can always return one for points. You can get
exactly.
another.
I just want to point out before we move to the Avenger is that the Sumerian likes to go for the achievement track for, well, obvious reasons, as a side that clearly benefits him and really pushes forward on that way to end the game and gain points. The Slayer, on the other hand, is a lot more focused on encounters, since despite them being risky and scary, they do give quite good rewards if you succeed in them, and adventures as well. Because adventures are basically the reason why encounters exist in the game in the first place. So if you try to push and get a good fate token supply and you don't care particularly much about the gods, the Slayer really, really pushes for adventures. So you kind of want to help, like, to sway the ally into letting you get to a good adventure, and the ally probably will not, will try to stop you. But again, you just go into danger and kind
Yeah.
of recklessly do your best.
If you've rolled a double warrior as Conan while this side of the Slayer is up, completing an encounter, then you're like, you know what? I'm going to try to unlock these encounters. And maybe you can get multiple, all right, I can defeat these. But especially if like the foe has put a die up somewhere, like maybe they put one up here or down here, and you're like, well, I'm going to put up this one. So I've got the 2 orange successes already because a lot of these encounters, you have to have 2 orange successes. The giant spiders, you have to actually have the double result. So it's one of the trickier encounters. But a lot of these are like, all right, if I've got Hell Pack is up there, which is in any kingdom, so you're definitely going to face it if they're unlocked. Conan has got 2 successes there. If he's got 1 die, he has to set aside because the foe put a die up there. All he needs is, with his other die, is to roll a warrior. If all he has is 4, if he's got more dice, that's even better. But he'll get 3 points for having 1 die set aside, another 2 points. So 5 points can be pretty significant. You're definitely going to get almost every 5 points, you're picking up something. So there's a little bit of a gap here between 6 and 12. But here, I go up 5 points from here. I'm getting a local fate token. I'm getting a gold. from here, I'm also going to roll the local kingdom die. So there's like even more that you can get out of it. So this is an interesting choice for this particular Conan, to be like, yeah, even if the foe is like, screw you, I'm not putting any dice up there. So that, you don't have to set any aside, but you're like, well, if I'm still putting dice up here, I might not need to roll anything to successfully beat many of these encounters. So if Conan gets a double warrior and another warrior, he's going to automatically beat the Hell Pack for sure. And then maybe the other characters are wasting actions just to cycle stuff out, so Conan can't, easily score all those points. And so that can have effect on what the other players accomplish. Anytime you can get other players to waste their dice on fruitless endeavors, that's probably to your advantage as well. But yeah, sometimes it's Conan. I like to unlock the encounters because I think I can probably get these rewards. Oh, some points here. Advance on thief. Advance on pirate. There might be a lot that you can accomplish with that. So yeah, it's good to have a character that can capitalize on that. And as you can see, yeah, very clearly different approach to how you probably will play most of your rounds, depending on which Conan you have. And then we have the Avenger, which also we beefed up a little bit. So this version of the Avenger, if I can find my physical copy, I was reminded of it as I was flipping through and looking at them, also gets more points than he would otherwise for this particular effect. So score 1 point for each warrior rolled for an adventure but did not use. I think that's also 3 points. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah.
Even
3 victory points. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something.
Yeah. And warrior is something that Conan can definitely roll. It's going to roll that more often than any other. So,
Yeah, to the point where you can even use fate tokens just to turn them into warriors, even though you don't need them, just so you can benefit off of those extra results.
yeah.
This Conan is definitely all about just overwhelming brute strength, especially when you see the other side.
And if you're doing an adventure, I mean, you do have to be in a kingdom with the warrior attribute, so that there is a little bit of limitation. But you can be like, oh, look, here's an adventure that is only given out 1 point, so it wouldn't be Tehran because it doesn't have that attribute. But if we find one, in any case, if you find it's only 1 point, and let's say it has some warrior things, so you use the other player's dice. You're like, great, you can use your dice. You're going to get 1 point, and but I've rolled all these warriors that I could have used, and I'm going to actually get more points for not using my dice. So yeah, it's it really lets you take advantage of it. And when you unlock an extra die, I think Conan the Avenger definitely wants those orange dice. So these roll more warriors, including the double warrior. So you're like, oh, here's a free one, and I've got 3 gold. I'll get this one as well. And so now you're really trying to make sure you do an adventure, especially if you're like, yeah, get to here you go. This is a warrior kingdom. Look at all those warriors on there. It's only 1 point, so you can be like, ally, foe. Yeah, I'll definitely use your dice. And, you have Zath. Great. You can turn that 2 into a 4. But here Conan, he's advancing on warrior. He's going to get 2 gold. He's going to roll the savage die twice. And then if he's rolled 5 warriors himself, that's a lot of points. That's a lot of points that Conan would get for this one. So the other players will be like, we cannot let Conan go here. We got to get out of there as fast as we can and force him to go somewhere else. So yeah, it has that's a kind of a ripple effect there too. Is when the stars align, you're like, ooh, great. Any adventures that are in Nordheim or Samaria, some of these down here, Shem and Karaja, have the warrior attributes. So those are the ones that Conan is looking for. And if you're using the other board, like a lot of these here have the warrior attribute. Just about almost all of them. Kush
problem.
doesn't, but this is where
All the
Conan
odds,
wants
yeah.
to go. Go down and do these adventures, and kablam! He just has to roll a lot of warriors and make sure that he completes it. And then the other side, of course, has to do with Conan getting into fights and duels. So we wanted to have a Conan that was focused on wanting to do that as much as possible, because that you can have a game of the Adventures of Conan where there are just no duels between the players, because the players can usually, if they want to get away from another player, you can often do that. You're wasting a lot of moves just to try to get away. But if you are fight averse or duel averse, and the fight tokens, sometimes there's a lot of challenge tokens in there, and you don't always find the fights right away. You might find some of the good ones or the Temple of Set, but even here, Conan can get into a fight with the Temple of Set, so even that is kind of a nice thing for Conan to think about, getting rid of those tokens from the board, because it's going to be a lot easier for him to do it. You don't get anything for it. There's no points for defeating a Temple of Set, but you definitely don't want to leave them up there for the foe to be able to just abuse their existence and just rack up points, especially if they're like, oh, I've got one here in Zimbabwe and one in the Black Kingdoms, and I'm just going to move back and forth and rack up points because they can. So Conan or the ally have got to go down there. They got to try to maybe beat up on the foe and send them further away, but then they got to get rid of those tokens, and that's why that is allowed. It's to encourage the players to be like, well, you don't like it, do something about it. And here, Conan the Avenger is like, yeah, great, bring it on, because I'm going to usually be able to do it. And he can probably use those warriors earlier, to advance on the warrior track. Or I'm going to get into a fight, and then I'm going to have all those dice I can use again, and I might still have a bunch of successes left over so that I can do it again. And I've seen somebody duel the foe, beat up on him, and then move him next door, and then move next door and beat up on him again. So especially like you beat up on the foe one time, he probably has no dice in his pool to get into another duel. So you're just all you have to do is roll one warrior in order to beat him again. And that, you're wounding the foe. You may be getting some victory points that way. So Conan the Avenger he is poised to be able to be very effective at that approach.
Yeah, a game with Conan the Avenger versus Eamon the Flayed, that would be a bloody game for sure.
A battle for the ages, for sure. I think it's also pretty clear how different all of these play. Like, one is pretty standard. It's in the base game for a reason. It's just the introduction and really solid all around, but nothing flashy. One that is extremely flashy, but to engage with game systems, and the other that is extremely flashy to engage with other players. So you're going to have a great time just juggling between these three, especially if you play with the Rose Gallery, as we mentioned earlier.
Yeah. All right, so that's for Conan. Let's just set the Conans over here for now. And let's turn our attention over to an ally. We're going to start, again, we'll start with Janissa, who has two very interesting effects. So on the one side, she can buy a foe die for 1 gold in the resource phase if there are any available. And again, whether or not they're available, that's done in player order. So if there are 2 foes, one foe will get first dibs at buying dice. Then the ally would get a chance to buy one of those dice just for 1 gold. And then if there are any left over, the other foe would have an opportunity to buy some. So there might be times where she's not going to be able to get anything. But buying 1 foe die is pretty good because, again, these have got 2 sides have a wild. And so that is pretty effective. And while she's got it, the foe's character symbol counts as a character symbol for Janissa. And that's what this token here is for. If she is going to put a die, if she's going to put a foe die on the encounter track, that's how you mark that, because it's important to know whose die is this, because Conan doesn't have to set aside a die if these are the only ones that are on the encounter track. Like let's say Conan puts this one up there too. So it's like, great, it's a 3-player game. We've unlocked the encounters. Well, there are no faux dice on here. This does not count as a faux die for purposes of this. It's an ally die. So it would be an automatic success of a warrior if Janissa has to roll. And if the foe is in the game and they're putting their dice up there, then okay, that's the foe and this is Janissa's. So that's what that's for. But being able to afford another die cheaply, because normally the allies' dice cost 2 gold. Just for single gold. So if you're playing with Janissa, normally in the very first round of play, the foe is the only one who can buy a 5th die, but Janissa can definitely get one for her 1 starting gold. So that's pretty good. And then on the other side, her ability here is that she can give a scry fate token to a foe if Conan does not attempt an adventure to prevent the foe from advancing on the plot track. So normally the foe automatically does it, but she can give that foe a scry, and then if she does, she scores 3 victory points and then flips her card over. So here is you can actively also prevent Conan from attempting an adventure. And if you've got that scry token, you're like, great, this is going to be 3 points for me. And so, before you get to the adventure phase, as Janissa, you're looking for, where can I get a scry token? If we're in a scry kingdom, you might be able to get a local fate token. If you're moving up on a track where you get a local fate token, that's one way to do it. But the other way is in those kingdoms, certain kingdoms, you want to pay a gold to roll those kingdom dice so that you can pick up fate tokens that way. And if you've got any kind of fate token, you can always do a trade action in the main phase to just say, let's trade that one for this one. So it's not hard for Janissa to get a hold of those fate tokens to do this. And 3 points would be nice. And it also stymies the foe. So she is, she's an interesting character. Sometimes wants to help Conan, sometimes happy to just beat on him as well. But that's that. So let's compare her to the 2 Belit characters' abilities.
Well, one side is the dark side, but whenever Conan enters a port kingdom, which will happen relatively often, gain a port fate token if you have none.
Yeah, so this is just a good way for her to pick up those pirate fate tokens, because remember, if you end the main phase in a kingdom with the pirate attribute, then it's just going to be really easy for Belit to cash those in and move up on that pirate track. So that's really what that's focused on.
And then you combo it with once per round, count 1 pirate as a wild.
Yeah.
Which it probably Belit is, at least for me, the second best character to have Ibis on. Like Ibis, the god token that allows you to flip your character card. Because it's like Conan entering a port kingdom means that you are also entering a port kingdom, since, well, you are kind of stuck with him. So you can make use of that pirate symbol to either advance on the plot, or if you have Ibis, you can flip it, and now you have whatever you want. You have any result you may ever want. So Belit definitely focuses more on this side of the board than most of the other. I guess the exception of Turan is always present.
Yeah.
But she's very interesting to play and try to sway Conan into taking a little detour, just a little to the coast. She really likes seeing the beach, I guess. Before going to the adventure, just how hard can it be to just take a little stop by the beach?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love those 2 abilities just for their thematic weight. Like, if Conan needs to sail somewhere, Belit can always gather a couple ships, when they get to the coast. And on the other side, if she's got some pirates with her, they can help her do anything. Nothing Belit can't do with a couple pirates helping her out.
Yes.
I think it's simple ability, but it makes sense.
It's very effective, though. It's
That too.
It takes 3 lines of text to explain the abilities, and it's really good. It may not look like much, but if you have a semi-consistent way of flipping your character card, you can easily use both sides like 3 or 4 times in a game, and 3 or 4 wild results
Yeah.
extra to your dice is really good.
Yeah, I would say both these characters are actually great for having
Yeah, for
the
sure.
god that lets you flip your character. What I really love on Janissa actually is you can stay on that side that lets you buy foe dice since they're
Hmm.
cheap and they're really useful with those two wilds. And then if you ever see a circumstance where you've got a scry fate token and you could prevent Conan from getting to an adventure, you can use it to flip your character to that side, prevent the foe from moving up, get those 3 points, and then the card automatically flips back to the side that lets you buy those cheaper dice.
Yep.
It's really great synergy if that god is in play. And I mean,
Yeah.
I would honestly be totally fine with saying, hey, you're gonna play Janissa, okay, we'll stick Ibis in there for you, just because it's really fun to pull off.
Yeah.
It's also very interesting. Yeah.
And what I will point out here on this side of the Belit thing, this pirate symbol, that is not a fate token.
Yeah.
So
No.
that's just a pirate result on her dice that she can
Oof,
count
even better.
as a wild. So it's once per round. So maybe she rolled a pirate on the plot thing, and she's like, well, I don't need a pirate on this particular plot. In fact, a lot of the plots don't have pirate. Some of them do. But you're like, great. If I roll one, I can be like, that's a wild. Or, she can, in the main phase or in the other phases, she hasn't used that ability yet. She knows that rolling a pirate for her is going to be whatever it is she needs. So yeah, very handy effect there.
I want to point out how different they play as well. Belit is kind of that doesn't care about what Conan does too much. As long as he goes at least every once in a while to a poor kingdom, she's more than happy to just flip around and get wild results. On the other side, Janissa is sometimes can actively try to hinder Conan by pushing away from an adventure, cycling that juicy adventure you're so close to, but no, this time no adventure. Just because it hurts Conan quite a lot, it hurts the foe quite a lot, and you just gain. So Janissa is a lot more mean, more direct. So you definitely are going to have a game of a little bit of push and pull between Conan and the ally. On the other side, Belit is a little more nuanced, a little more gentle, I guess. She's just going to maybe not take the shortest path to an adventure, but she will bring you there at the end.
Yeah. Now with Cowlin, and
Oh,
she is a Sumerian. She's from Conan's village. Um, Here we've got one side is you're going to score. Now let me just double check. It's actually two. So yeah, it is better. You're going to score 2 victory points for each of your dice that could be selected by Conan for an adventure, but are not. So yeah, I mean, with thematically, she's like, I can kick just as much ass as you if I need to, and she was pretty tough. In fact, in this particular issue, she's pregnant with some Nordheim guy's baby, but she's still just beating these other Nords down and kicking their butts as well. So yeah, it's a matter of as this ally, you want to try to go to adventures that are at least worth 2 points and maybe 3 points, because if Conan doesn't use your dice when he could, you're still going to get 2 points for each of those dice. So this is a character that wants to really help Conan get to an adventure, but steering away from those 1-pointers so that you can get at least 2 points per a couple of your dice, and that's nice. And with the other side is that you can spend fate tokens as gold when buying additional dice. So if you're able to pick up a bunch of fate tokens, then you know that you can pick up more of your ally dice. They still cost 2 gold each, but you can be like, well, I got 3 gold and I got a thief fate token, so I'm going to spend that and get 2 dice. And now you've got more actions, you've got more ways to maybe advance on achievements, or make sure you can get Conan to an adventure, or make sure that you get points one way or the other. So both of those, again, very pithy, straightforward effects, but they will influence your gameplay approach.
I love playing Conan if we're playing with bazaar cards, especially this side. Because cheaper dice means I have more gold means more bazaar cards, and I just love them. They have so many interesting effects that can really change how the game plays, and she's just great to make stuff cheaper in a way. The other side, though, is really fun. Because if you play her together with someone like Emon the Flayed or some other foe that really puts Conan in the spot on the spot of like, do you want to choose my dice or not in an adventure? Conan can really have a hard time just saying, well, I'm going to give you one die, maybe two, but I don't know, but I really don't want to, and then you just kind of just laugh it off because you're going to get good points one way or the other. It's just really reliable, really fun.
Yeah, I love this ally just even for the purpose of getting a lot of fate tokens and just applying them to all your dice that they're all useful on an adventure. And then
Yeah.
whether or not Conan chooses your dice, you're just getting guaranteed value.
Mhm.
And then the other side, just yet more reasons to amass fate tokens because it really gives you an excuse to always use that free action to roll, to spend a die and roll a kingdom die, not spend a die, spend a gold,
I go, yeah.
and see if you can get some fate tokens because they're basically the same as gold for you, especially if you're not playing with bizarre cards. And if they come in handy, it's great that you have them. And if they don't, then you didn't really lose anything because you can just use those to buy more dice anyways.
Yeah, I mean,
And
yeah,
So it's really great.
going after random fate tokens with Callan is really great because you're either going to get something that's useful at a time when you need it, or you're just going to cash it in. So either way, it's win-win. And then finally, our last ally that we're going to look at today is a Malric the Lion. So he's got one side where at the end of the resource phase, he may buy fate tokens for 2 gold each. So it's a little bit different here. He can be like, well, do I want to buy more dice or do I want to buy more fate tokens? So as playing as a Malric with this side especially, you are looking for ways to pick up more gold if you can, because it does give you that ability. And when you get to the point where you're like, all right, I've got some gold, and you're like looking at these adventures, and you're like, oh, all right, this one's a 2.1, so let's get Conan there, because I can buy the exact fate tokens that I need, so that when it's time, either you can change those dice right after you roll them and say, all right, Conan, there it is. Those are successes, and it's symbols that maybe you are not easy to roll. Or you can wait to change them when you're checking in to see were there dice that Conan could have picked and didn't. And you can say, well, let's change these into the dice now because that is totally legal. And you're like, great, boom, 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 boom. I'm going to pick up those points and maybe even complete the adventure yourself. And then on the other side, we've got if you duel with a foe, you may deploy any or all of your active dice to your warrior pool. So this is a character, if you're using this side, you are looking to move Conan into a kingdom with the foe so that you can get into a duel with them. And because, yeah, whatever you have rolled can be used. So normally you'd be like, well, I can't use that. Yeah, these are all pretty good, but like, yeah, I can't use that. But you can be like, you know what, I'm going to use all of these, and just really try to get as many warriors at that point, and not only defeat the foe, but maybe get some points, maybe steal a token, and so yeah, if that's your type of play, I'm an aggressive person and I want to go beat up on the foe. This is that's the character for you. So I mean, you immediately see how this is a very different kind of play style that is encouraged depending on which side you have face up. And these are both, there's no automatic flip, so you're just deciding, I'm probably going to have this ability for the whole game. There may be a reason, you like, oh, I'll flip my character card at some point. But this is kind of like, yeah, I think that I'm going to go for gold or I'm going to go for picking a fight with the bad guy. And it might depend on
I
who the
just want,
bad guy is before you're
yeah,
like,
exactly. I just want to point out that on this side, it's you, the ally, that has to duel with the foe. So it means that on your turn, you're going to move the token into the foe. If the foe instead is attacking Conan, it's going Conan who's going to fight, and same if Conan is going to duel the foe. So this is a deliberate decision by you to just put Conan on the spot and say, "Well, I'm just going to fight the foe. You watch from the outlines. I don't care. Just watch me win this." Because it can be really good because the ability is really really powerful, but at the same time, if you fail for whatever reason, it's also Conan who is going to get moved, probably not in the best spot in the world, because at the end of the duel, the loser gets moved by the winner in an adjacent kingdom. And if you are unfortunate enough to be near the Eastern Desert, you're sure you're going to do a trip over there.
Yeah. Or Hyperborea, same thing. Like,
Yeah.
oh no, I'm stuck here, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kingdoms adjacent to Hyperborea, so there's a good chance that you can get into a fight there as well, or a duel rather. So yeah, those are your allies, and there, like I said, there are other allies, and some of them are maybe a little bit more sinister in terms of their effects and how those things work out. Like Alvazar gets points for putting dice on the encounter track, which you're like, oh, thanks a lot. You're leading me into trouble.
You're on here, pal.
Exactly. So we're going to look at now some foes. So the Tothaman is very he's encounter focused, more so on one or the other. So this one, in the main phase, as his action, you can place an active die on an encounter or an adventure, and it counts as an additional required result for any player. So that would also be for Tothaman. So it doesn't count as an automatic success for him. But he can make encounters much more difficult, and he can make adventures more difficult. And the more dice that are needed, the more likely Conan is to need somebody else's dice. So you're using up one of your dice to hopefully get use out of the other dice, and of course you often will have more dice than everyone else. The other side, very encounter focused. So whenever Tothaman places a die on the encounter track, bink, he gets to cycle for free one of the encounters. So you might be like, well, we've got an any and an any, which is great. Let's get rid of this one because he's not going to the coast. So we've got that, and like, all right, well, he might be going to an Eldritch Kingdom, so let's do that one. And that's each time. So he's really encouraged to put dice on that encounter track because he gets this extra effect for free. So that's, again, if this is your thing. So like Greg likes to just use, Greg just likes to do sorcery and place challenge tokens. That's his favorite thing to do as whichever foe he's playing. And you can still do that here. But you can be like, oh, I'm going to do some sorcery to cycle here, and then I'm also going to put the other dice up on the encounter track and cycle again, and just get a really optimal mix. Like, we've unlocked the encounters. Conan has to set aside maybe 2 dice, maybe more, and so there's a good chance he's not going to be able to beat any of these things. And as the foe, you might be able to clean up afterward, and you'll get some automatic successes with the dice you placed. Conan or an ally, they might contribute some success, making it really easy for you to pick up some points and other goodies. So to contrast that, let's look at, this is another character who has the same red dice. So this is Kirilo. So whenever he fights or duels, he can add any spent sorceries to his warrior pool. And so you've got, if we look at the dice mix there, on the red dice, you've got 2 sides that are sorcery, and on the white dice, which are your general pool, which are the ones that you're going to buy or unlock, there are really 4 sides that can count as a sorcery. So 2 wilds and 2 actual sorcery on there. So it's got a good chance of having plenty of those. So this is encouraged to duel Conan and maybe even get into a fight himself. And on the other side, whenever you would gain a sorcery fate token, you may gain any fate token other than a wild fate token. So looking for reasons is not, it's kind of a similar thing with Belit, but not the exact same effect. But here, as Kirilo, you're looking to find reasons to get a sorcery fate token. So you may be going into a kingdom like the Eldritch Die's got some sorcery on it. I feel quite certain. And here you can see the Treachery die has one as well. So yeah, there's two sorceries in Eldritch Kingdom. So if he starts in Iranistan, he's just got to go next door over to here, and it has the sorcery attribute. So anytime he goes up on the point track and he's going to get a local fate token, he can be like, great, I would get a sorcery, but instead I'm going to get whatever I want. And he might like, I'll pick up a warrior and advance on that warrior achievement. So very different approaches, even though it's the same pool of dice. They're looking to do different things on average.
And again, like Kirillov allows you to play in two very different ways as well, just as himself. One that is a little more tactical, a little more. I'm going to prepare a good pool of die of fate tokens so that I can face an encounter, an adventure, or whatever. And the other side that is, well, Conan, I see you on the map, I'm going to hunt you down and I'm going to beat you. And that's very, very different, even just from himself, and not even thinking about how different Totamon plays. I have a soft spot for Totamon because he is the one foe that made the game click for me. This side specifically, when I put a die in there and said, okay, I can cycle an encounter, I understood why I would want to cycle an encounter, and then everything kind of just cracked and everything just cracked open, and I understood why the game was as good as it is. And they are very, 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 very different. Totamon generally stays around Stygia, will do the funny Temple of Set trick, just move back and forth, or build the Temple of Set highway,
the
as we
highway
once
of
called it.
set.
Yeah, highway of Set, yeah, as we once called it. Kirill, on the other hand, wants to move, wants to be near Conan, always be a threat, always be active.
Yeah, I
And
mean, he's
Kirill is
definitely
really
going to try to
interesting because
toggle on that
Yeah, exactly.
pirate attribute here so that he can be like, now I can go, I can hit most of these places and have a surprise move, hopefully pretty close to Conan.
yeah, he's really interesting because both of those sides they kind of encourage like a you're charging up, you're getting ready, and then you're gonna go in. Whether it be trying to collect as many sorcery into whatever else he wants, fate tokens, or he wants to do a bunch of sorcery, get some challenge tokens down the board, and then use all those exhausted ones for forming a warrior pool. He's in Iranistan, which isn't a port kingdom by default. He's got to toggle it on, and he's about as far away from Conan as you can get, which means he's basically totally safe here. But one kingdom action, and now it's a pirate kingdom, and now he can be anywhere. So he's safe, but he can get right into the fray whenever he wants to, as long as he got that kingdom die or kingdom result.
Yeah, and this is he appears in like a 6-issue story of Conan the Slayer, and it's these two abilities are basically what he's doing the whole time in that story. So it was fun to try to find, all right, what are these effects? What game effects will simulate his character arc in that series? So that was kind of a fun thing to do. Let's look at Natok, because that is an interesting character as well. On the one side, on his red side here, is each time a fight challenge token is removed from the board, add it face down to your pool. So Natok is going to have the ability to just keep throwing fights at Conan, because as soon as one of them comes up and it gets revealed, there will be a fight, and then Natok's going to have it again. So next time he does a sorcery action, no matter what he draws from the supply of challenge tokens, he knows he's got a fight that he can put down, next door to Conan, or in Conan's path, and Conan can be like, oh, anytime you put a challenge token down, there's an excellent chance that it's going to be a fight. Whereas on the other side is during the main phase, he can spend a sorcery to focus a rival die. So remember, focusing is you're looking at what somebody rolled and you're like, oh, look, you rolled a double warrior here. Let's just change that to that. There you go. Enjoy that move. So you're changing the die to a different side. That's what focus a die means. So yeah, Natok can be very meddlesome in a couple of different ways, and it's a rival die. So it could be the allies die. It could also be, if you're in a 4P with another foe, it can be a foe's die as well. So yeah, it's just a nice. And again, you're rolling a lot of sorceries on average. He's got the black dice here, so again, 2 sides of the black dice, sorcery, and then 4 sides on these white dice. So on either case, probably going to be able to do this quite a bit if he wants to, and that might be preventing Conan or an ally or whoever from putting useful dice on the encounter track, or it might be slowing them down. They might be like, we need 3 moves in order to get where we want, and he can be like, let's change that to that. So probably can't move with either of those. It depends. Like some of the kingdom effects will help you move, but if Conan is in, if I'm
I mean, you can move with a scry at least.
Exactly.
He's got the gold.
So yeah, those are again a really different mindset for your character and what is going to motivate your gameplay as you're going along.
I just want to point out that he's starting in the Eastern Desert, so most likely he's never going to leave that kingdom for the vast majority of the game. He's just like a mastermind playing a different game from the middle of nowhere, throwing little like troops, little puppets at Conan just to annoy him, change his plans, even help a foe. Like if you're playing a 4P and you have 2 foes, you're totally free to like make deals and talk to each other to plot against the Conan and the ally. So maybe if the foe is really desperate for a thief result for whatever reason, maybe to complete the encounter track, and he doesn't have it, you can just say, well, now you do, enjoy. It's just really, really fun to play Natok because you're just there like games master in a D&D campaign, just waiting for things to happen and deciding what terrible thing will I throw at people.
And if you are following along from home, the final print version of Natok has a automatic flip effect on both sides. So when he does the fight challenge token, then he's flipping over to being able to focus a die. So he's going to be able to really hammer his rivals with both of those effects throughout the game. So that is, that's particularly sinister. I think it makes him even more abusive overall.
Yeah, for sure.
Now,
Natok is he's my favorite foe by far. Both of those abilities complement it, and I want to see just harassing Conan with fights, and then you put one encounter challenge token, a really brutal fight next to him, and you get like Eamon to come fight him, and then knock Conan into the challenge token.
Yeah.
Now he's like got no warriors left. He's already wounded, and now he's like this horrible fight token.
Yeah, all of his dice are in the wound boat here, and he's got to use everyone else's dice for those adventures. All right, and let's jump into Nabonidus. This is the guy from Rogues in the House. I love this art. Kind of looks like what's his bucket from Blade Runner, Rutger Hauer. But whenever you scry and then pay 1 gold to move, you may also move a challenge token, even one moving one with you. So you can do a scry. What's kind of fun about that is you do a scry action maybe on a challenge token that was placed by the board. So nobody knows what this is, and maybe Conan is pretty close by. So you're like, let's take a look at this. Oh, look, it's a fight, and so you can pay the gold to do that. But now you know that that's going on, but you can also move yourself. And so normally it's when you do a scry action, you can pay a gold to do a move action. So you could do that as normal, but you can also, as Nabonidus, say like, and I'm going to move over here, and maybe you have also scried a token. He starts in Corinthians, so he may be like, there's a good token over here, so I'm going to move over here and get this, and I'm paying my 1 gold to move this one over here and cause trouble. Or if he's like, this is a good token to kind of deter Conan from coming after me, so I'm going to move it with me as I go into this kingdom next door. To move around, because if Conan wants to duel a foe, and the foe is in a kingdom with a challenge token, this happens first. You got to resolve that challenge token. And Conan may be like, "Oh no, I got to fight this, and maybe I've used up my pool, but now I am in a fight and I'm in a duel with this character." So that will still happen too, but that's the order of operations. I don't know if the rule book says that, but yeah, you deal with the challenge token immediately. That's first and foremost. And that can be troublesome. Nabonidus is very sneaky, and that's just one of his abilities. The other one is whenever you draw a challenge token, draw 2, keeping 1 to keep and setting the other one aside face up. So he really gets to curate the experience he wants to. He'd be like, oh, I drew 2 good things. I'll take the better one and put it close to me. Or he's more likely to find the challenge tokens that are going to harass Conan and the ally the most. He's able to get to those more quickly and really set traps and make life difficult.
I think this side, I think it's probably Greg's favorite foe,
Yeah.
just for that reason
Yeah.
alone. Yeah, I want more challenge tokens.
Yeah, I really enjoy Nabonidus just because he plays so weirdly. Like all the other foes so far, apart like we have Kirilo who is going to run at Conan, and we have Nathok who's just going to sit back and throw at things at Conan. Thotamon who is just going to let monsters and bandits and whatever deal with Conan, and then you have this guy that does basically all 3 things at once. He's like kind of like a mastermind. He's choosing the best sort of like solution for the moment, seeing what challenge tokens to pick, where to place it. He has really good movement, which is something that not many foes have. Generally, the foe is quite static, but Nabonidus has the ability to just move himself and a challenge token the same turn. So if you get some gold and you can roll some scries or get some scries, it's really, really powerful. And again, it's just weird. It's very different from any other foe in the entire roster, even the ones we don't have here. Allowing you to choose the perfect challenge token should not be understated, because more often than not, you're not going to get like particularly good choice that you have sure a fight or a temple set. I most likely will forget about the fight and put down this. But in some cases, you get one of those really good challenge tokens, the extra die, the victory points at the end of game, or a terrible fight. At that point, you can just throw away the victory points and send the fight towards Conan, or you can play sneaky.
Yeah.
And then Conan will ask, if you throw away a fight, what the hell did you pick? What could it be? And the mind games begin.
Yeah. So if Nabonidus wants to set up the road of Set,
The highway.
he's going to have a much easier time of finding the multiple Temple of Set tokens, so that that's easier. And then he's like, great, I'm just going to move around here, get some points, and then maybe I'll get some other challenge tokens in here. Once this is face up, then you can place face down tokens here as well. And then, of course, when the foe is moving in and out of kingdoms with challenge tokens, they can ignore them. They'd be like, yeah, I'm just going to move over here. Oh, now I'm going to move back here. I see Conan is making his way toward me. I'm going to go over here, so that if Conan is like, in fact, he doesn't even want to move into this kingdom because that is going to make him lose a fate token. And then he's like, well, if I come in here, what is it? And here's like, oh, it's a fight. So yeah, it's plus, yeah, he's got to deal with that too. He's like, I'm losing a fate token. Now I'm in a fight and now I'm in a duel. So yeah, it's just a hot mess for Conan. And, that is what makes Nabonidus, I think, a lot of fun to play. Maybe not play against, but to play as. Haha.
For sure. I just want to shout out the one character that sadly we don't have here, but is probably my favorite, and that being Ohala, which is both an ally and a foe, and she's extremely fun to play. It's weird, it's very different, it's very strange. I think it's in the base game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, she's in the base
Yes,
game.
it is.
So when if you're playing so you're playing a 3-player game and you've got somebody as the foe and if somebody is Conan and you're the ally as Ohala, and at some point you're like, well, I'm going to flip over and be a foe. And so her token gets added to the board, and you are now, Conan has very few friends that he can rely on. So yeah,
flip
it's
back, which is
very,
the thing.
yeah, it's really kind of unfortunate for Conan. But yeah, it's just a matter of, and her abilities are pretty good too. So it's kind of a fun dynamic. But yeah, I think the rule book even says, don't use this one for your first game. You're really going to want to have a good handle on, all right, I understand how to play this game and I've got some good ideas. And imagine a 4P game where Ohala is the ally as well. And so you're like, oh no,
3v1.
3 foes coming at me. The encounters are always going to be unlocked, and I'll have maybe one die I can roll as Conan. and which means you're not going to succeed, and you might even be helping somebody else complete those encounters, which means that you're gonna get wounds, and you won't have as many dice to use. So that's it can be very brutal with 2 and especially 3 foes. So at your own risk, do you use those? Maybe a fun way to Rogues Gallery, get Ohala in the mix there. So you're like, oh, sometimes I'll be an ally, sometimes I won't. And that is how you can technically have 2 allies in play at the same time. But if you're going to have, you want to make sure they have different primary dice, the 2 allies, if Ohala is going to be one of them. But well, if you've got questions, if you're watching this and you're still with us, let us know. Any questions you have about any of these effects we covered. As we mentioned, there's several other characters that we did not even look at. But let us know who's your favorite and which characters you have played if you've already had a chance to try this out, and which ones are going to be at the top of your list. And also tell us, a little bit about your play style. Are you more confrontational? You're like, I'm all about fights and duels, so I do want to play, as Kirilo, or as one of these other characters that's good at that, and maybe that will influence which Conan you want to be. You're like, well, maybe I'll be the Conan the Avenger, who is better suited for that. So if so and so is going to be Kirilo, then I'm going to pick that Conan, and that's the side I'm going to start off with. Add in all of my spent warriors so that I can hold my own against them. But and let us know what else you want the Savage Board of Conan to look at. We're going to look at everything anyway, but maybe it'll inform the order. That's it for this one. Thank you guys for your insights and opinions. And we're going to be looking at doing some playthroughs as well. So let us know what kind of configurations you'd like to see for a playthrough. And otherwise, we'll just decide ourselves. That's it for this one. We'll see you again soon.